Today, I have a special guest joining me, Daria Lebedeva. Daria is a trauma-informed manifestation coach and an intuitive spiritual guide for entrepreneurs. Daria is passionate about helping people shift their reality, manifest abundance, and step fully into the life they've always envisioned, a life filled with love, joy, and deep purpose. Daria, welcome to the show. I am thrilled to have you here.
Hi Laura, thank you for having me. It's very exciting to be here.
So, as we're getting started, I wanted to ask you because I know that so many people that work in the fields that you and I kind of share space in right now, we didn't start in this profession. We kind of had a backstory that inspired us to make some shifts and make some changes. Does that sound true for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I started off more within the psychology field. So I did my undergrad in psychology, and then I just had a few years to just, go off, travel, discover myself. And within that time, I figured I got to a place where I was like, right, I think I'm ready to help people now. And I'm sure as most people do, you sit down, you search on the website of like, okay, career paths. Where am I going to go? And all the ones that come up are the standard systemic career paths, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of like what I fell into as well. Like I picked the path that I thought was going to be suited to me of where I could help people, and I just kind of went along with that. So I ended up picking to do a master's in psychiatric research and working in mental health hospitals to get that exposure, that experience, with the idea of then going on and becoming like a clinical psychologist and, working in these settings. So I very quickly found that this journey was not as I thought it was going to be. And, doing all this master's whilst working, 12-hour shifts, like it was all quite a lot to handle. And again, I very much quickly discovered how much pressure there was on with being within this field to perform almost to past your capacity, to be honest. Like there was this expectation of a lot of pressure to do so many things at one time and to still maintain your own mental health, even though this is kind of the field you're going in. So I kind of found that there was a bit of this double standard of the amount of pressure that was put on you to get into these courses and programs and to succeed to help others, whilst actually what I found like my own health started to decline very quickly because of that pressure. So yeah, like I worked for a few years in mental health hospitals, and I found I wasn't really making the impact that I wanted to make. So I ended up switching to another job, which was working in a prison as a health and well-being practitioner, helping people with addiction. So trying to really break that cycle of addiction and hopefully break the cycle of reoffending.
Mhm.
And, going into this job, this was where I was given my own caseload. So I thought, okay, maybe having a bit more of that one-on-one time, having your own caseload, maybe this is where I'll be able to make more of that impact. And again, this is really not what happened at all, because what I very quickly found was that most of my job involved paperwork, and most of the job involved a ridiculous amount of clients given to you, and I didn't really feel like I could do justice by any client because there was just too many to try and cover at one go.
Yes.
Yeah, again, I found myself very much in a place where it's like, okay, I'm on this journey, trying to help people, I'm trying to establish myself within this career, and yet I just felt like I wasn't making that impact or that change that I really wanted to make. And again, my own health really, really started to decline further because of like burnout, because of that pressure. And yeah, like eventually I just got to a place where my own mental health was just not great at all. So I had to leave the job and just take time out because my whole system just went, nope, we're just gonna collapse. We
Yeah.
cannot do this. So I then spent time just, I guess, reevaluating on the journey I was at, and I was in a really dark place because I totally absorbed a lot of that energy of hopelessness. I think that the environments I was at and the fact that I didn't feel like I was able to make that change. I really kind of lost hope in being able to help others.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really landed me in a dark place for myself. And it's within this place that I then started to read outside the norm. So I started to read for other and look for other methods that were beyond what I was taught within the system and what was
Mhm.
being given in the system. And this is where I came across more of the somatic work and trauma-informed ways of working, which really involves the body as well as the mind.
Mhm.
And for me, it just something clicked. I was like, wow, okay, this for me, this is the missing piece. Like even within my own healing, I found it so empowering to start to actually delve into my body.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's kind of what then led me on a path to take more online courses that maybe aren't so mainstream, that maybe aren't so, within the system. To me, it was a gift. To me, it was really what I was looking for to add to the range of other skills I already had. Yeah,
Everything
and
you're
then
saying just resonates so much with me. I can relate to all of it. I'm just nodding my head like, yep, 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 all of this. We're so similar in that we both kind of started our professional journeys wanting to help other people and wanting to do things that are really of service to others. And like you, I was kind of, followed the mainstream of like, okay, I'm going to study psychology. I'm going to work in a system of education. And it was daunting because the caseloads, like you said, are very, very high. The paperwork is very, very high, and it's hard to be of quality service to the people that you're wanting to help. And that has an impact on our own health and our own spiritual and psychological well-being as well, because we're in disconnect from what we're wanting to do, which is help people. And we know that we're not able to do it effectively. I'm wondering, was your body giving you other signs along the way? Can you explore that along about what that felt like for you, of the signs and symptoms, like now in hindsight, now that you know what you know now, what were you experiencing?
yeah, God, so many symptoms that I think I totally ignored because, again, of that pressure to just keep pushing forward,
Hmm.
like over matter attitude. Yeah, I mean, for one, I noticed in terms of my eating, I couldn't eat in the morning. I would wake up very dysregulated. And at that point, I didn't even know I was dysregulated. I would just wake up and I thought that this was my normal state. So I already was like feeling sick, couldn't eat. I would just show up to work, then work through lunch because again, it was easier for me just to work through to get myself going. So I didn't just like collapse basically. And I would have like several coffees a day just to again give me that boost, which was again adding to that state of dysregulation. But back then I wasn't really paying attention to my body at all.
Hmm.
And my sleep was awful. It started with the night shifts at the hospitals, which really like set me off course anyway with sleeping because, sometimes obviously you would work nights, so you'd have to have like an hour sleep there, and that would like be really disorientating for me. And then going forward, even then going to a 9 to 5 job at the prison, it's still my sleep just never really got back on track. And I was mainly having like those weird half sleep states where I was like revisiting almost like traumatic moments, not even just from my own like background, but from work. So things that were unprocessed during work because I didn't have the space to process it. It was all coming out in my sleep. So all these worries over clients and even how I was being triggered by clients was all coming up because there was no space for me to actually process any of this during my working hours or outside of those hours because I didn't really feel like I had much support, to be honest, from the places I was working for. It was, you had some limited supervision, but it wasn't like you weren't given the space to really discover and process what you were going through yourself.
What you just said is so important because, especially in the field of helping other humans, it brings up emotions within ourselves as well. And we need to process these things. We need to have time and space to sit with it, to work through it because it's heavy stuff. And I agree with you that a lot of employers, I'm sure it's not malicious intent, but they often don't understand the toll that this work has on people and on helper and helping professionals. And your body was giving you all of these red flags, all of these signs along the way, but it's just like you said, you just thought that was your baseline. You just thought that was, a normal way of being and didn't even realize, oh wait, this is actually not normal. Having these feelings, not being able to sleep properly, having these dreams that are intruding me, having these thoughts, having this discomfort, it's not normal. And
Mhm.
we're like conditioned to think that this is just, just have another coffee. It'll be fine. Push through it. It's like
Yeah.
not helpful.
Yeah, I think especially as a practitioner, there is that stigma around it where it's like, oh, well, I should just be able to cope with what's going on in the workspace. But like the reason I wasn't able to cope is because there was just no outlet at
Right.
all. And that's so important. So yeah, again, I'm sure it's not malicious intent, like you said, it's just, down to space, funding, timing, all these things. But it's, in my eyes, I think this is definitely something that needs to be looked at in the future a lot more in systems because no wonder people burn out and leave and change careers because, it is almost like an inhumane task to achieve of what, the goals and the standards that they set is very, very high and unachievable. So yeah, I kind of became what I now call like high functioning ill health. So
Mhm.
it's like, I would perform at work, I would do my job, but inside, I was just like completely bubbling up inside. It was all coming apart and just going downhill and downhill more and more. And, eventually that did just get to a place where I was like, I just don't know how much more I can handle this. I just need to like completely reset and leave. So, yeah.
And then this in your journey, you said that you started to do some research into things that weren't traditionally taught in your education, and that started to make sense to you and resonate with you and feel good for you personally, but also with how you can help others. And I relate to that as well. For me, my gateway kind of into that world was learning Reiki and seeing how this universal life force energy is available at all times to help and heal us. And so like for myself, this was such a transformative thing. Like I feel like, how did I not know that this existed? And I've lived most of my life not knowing that I had access to this and that it's so helpful. And I just want to share it with anyone and everybody who will listen to me now. I just there's like a newfound sense of joy and excitement and purpose. And like this feels right. I know I can use the skills that I have and integrate it with energy and be able to help people in a much more holistic and profound way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was similar for me. It kind of started when I had that time where okay, I was at home, I was like pretty much bedbound. I got diagnosed with an autoimmune condition because all these symptoms, bubbled over into Hashimoto's. And yeah, it was like I was, also looking into my symptoms and what I was going through and trying to just find other ways of approaching it because I was having my own battle with the system as well, where I wasn't like getting the right help from the GP and I wasn't really getting the referrals I wanted. And, I was bringing up issues. And maybe because I was conveying it in a more, I guess, like in a way where I wasn't, overly distressed and because I was seen to like be handling it, even though I really wasn't handling it, I didn't really get the right help. So I was like, I don't really have any other option but to look for other things because, there's got to be something else out there. Like, I was like, I don't want to give up and just think that this is how my life is now. So I started looking into trauma symptoms, and that's kind of what led me into complex PTSD and a lot more discovery around the somatic work and involvement around this. And then also around the autoimmune condition that I was dealing with. So I found a practitioner who was dealing with this sort of issue. And again, what really helped was lifestyle changes. It was not just nutritional changes, which was a very big thing for this specific condition, but also the body work. So also the nervous system regulation. And again, this was like kind of first time where I came across the fact that maybe it's because I'm in fight or flight all the time, or at that point I was in collapse. And it was like, maybe it's because that's what's going on. And it was never even really mentioned to me at all before in where I was working. So I had like very little awareness around this. I had very little awareness that I had lived in this constant dysregulated state for quite a few years of my life. So when I kind of realized that, I was like, wow, okay, I need to like, look into see how to regulate the nervous system. And yeah, that's where I again then ended up doing more research, some extra courses, and I had to make a huge lifestyle change where, you know, regulating my sleep, regulating my nutrition, regulating chemicals around me, so everything that's going into my body, the way I relate to my actual body and like the movement, and not doing movement from a place of I need to go and do this workout because it says it's good for me, but actually listening to what my body was craving at that time. Because on this healing journey, in this state of collapse, I had very little energy. So my body could do very little movement, but it was already starting to guide me with what small movements it could do, what would actually be helpful for it to release that stored up energy.
Give some examples of what are some of the movements that your body was telling you you need to do.
Yeah, so at that time, what I would very much do was tune into my body. So to see, okay, what was I feeling? What was coming up for me? And then, for example, for me, I was at that point working through a lot of trauma around boundary setting. So what my body wanted to do and what it didn't do in the past was this fluid movement of my hands, like going in front of me and putting up a boundary. And it was through this conscious awareness and connection of the body with the mind, with the soul where this sort of movement, I was able to release that charge that I was holding. It's like when your body wants to do something in the moment, but you restrict it. It ends up holding on to that charge. So then, if you can tune into the types of movements or maybe vocals that it wanted to express in the past, and
Mhm.
you can consciously do that in the present, but in a very controlled and slow manner where you can watch it happen, then that's the way you start to really release all that's stored up.
Did you have a teacher guiding you through this process and helping you learn how to do this, or was this something that you intuitively cultivated with yourself with what felt right to you?
It definitely started with my reading around trauma work. So, for example, The Body Keeps the Score was my first place, as I'm sure this is like a very, very popular book. And then from then on, it evolved into other readings and other research I did. And then I started to connect to my body intuitively. So there were certain things that were coming through myself. But then I did also do a wonderful course online where it was a guided course where you do tune in, you learn to tune into your body, you learn how to express, and it was all around nervous system regulation and including nutrition as well. So it was like really wonderful course to do and to be a part of that community because it was not just you, there was quite a lot of other people there as well attending these sessions where you can feel like, okay, I'm not the only one going through this. Actually, I'm not the only one that's, experiencing things this way. So yeah, it was a bit of both, but yeah, I would definitely recommend for people to join courses or any online learnings where you
Mhm.
can not only get the knowledge but feel supported by other people being there as well, because it really shows you that okay, it's not just me, it's not just in my head.
Really is so much power in community and having partnerships in your healing journey. I mean, we love to think, or like, a lot of people love to think I could do this by myself. I got this. I don't need anything. I'll figure it out. And yeah, maybe you can, but it's a much more enriching and fulfilling and expanding experience to be doing it in the company of other people that are in similar points in their journey that you actually learn so much more from each other. I'm really happy
Mhm.
that you had the opportunity to be able to connect with others in your path. Would you mind talking a bit about your current practice and what you are doing?
Yeah, so after all this, basically what I then went on to decide to open my own private practice because I thought, okay, you know what? Like I feel like I want to still do this work, but I think I have to find a different way of doing it. So I actually started off with doing counseling because just that's just what I was doing before. So I was like, okay, let me see how that goes. And then very quickly from that and starting to build connections within my local area, it ended up taking me down a more spiritual route because I connected with certain individuals, which then pointed me to this actual like another missing piece of what I wanted to add to my practice, which was spirituality. And it was this energy work. And so then, more courses happened. The right one where I feel like for now anyway, it was the trauma informed manifestation course that I came across. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my God, yes, this is so resonating with me. This is like what I want to do. So I delved into that work, and what I do now is very much what I learned from that course, as well as everything else I had learned up until that point. So within my practice now, I bring to people the somatic, the shadow work, and the energy work all together to really create that experience to guide people back to themselves. So like that's my main thing, right? Is to really help people to tune into themselves, to unlock that power that is within them, to unlock that wisdom that lives within all of us. Because I very much believe like we are our own best teacher. Like we can have guidance from other people and get that knowledge, but everything that we need for ourselves lies within us. So when we can really unlock that and tune into that source, that pure love connection and that connection to like everything, it's amazing what you can do just from that space of connectedness and love. So that's what I now do in my practice. And I also have this spiritual element that I've been delving in as well, which is connecting to the Akashic records and providing guidance for people that way as well. And again, this very much is I just act as a channel to tune into their higher selves and their guides to provide the messages of what that person needs to hear in that moment, because maybe they're not quite yet at the space where they can communicate with their higher self or guides in that same way. So it's like, I can be that channel for them for now to put them on the right path to then go and connect with themselves further.
The work
Yeah.
you're doing is so amazing, and I love that you're tying in all of your background into helping people, and that's the beauty of creating your own practice after having lived through the experiences that you have, is that you can really make it exactly what you want and make it exactly what makes sense to you, what your intuition is telling you the right thing to do, and you don't have to stay stuck with I'm going to stick with my counseling techniques, or I'm just going to do breath work today. Like, no, you find a way to incorporate it all. And it's like you're also teaching your clients, you're giving them the skills so that yes, you're their guide at this point, but it's like you're teaching them to fly so that they can be able to do this on their own. Because once you find the connectedness, once you find this inner love and light, which you described earlier, it's such a game changer. And it's like you just want to, for me too, I just want to share it with as many people as possible because it's hard to put into words if you haven't experienced it yourself. But it really changes everything for the better. Like mind, body, spirit, relationships, everything is different.
And I'd love to add to that as well. Like, I'm sure a lot of people are maybe at a point where there's fears that are getting in a way in terms of seeing this potential or seeing this other way of living. And I totally get that. I think I myself lived in these fears of, okay, well, if I go down a completely different route, how am I going to be perceived? Because, I was very much brought up in like, okay, there's this one systemic way of being, this is the career path, and this is how you do it, and that's it. So I get that it can be very scary to step outside that box. And this is kind of bringing it back to that community. Like there are so many people out there that are doing this work that are outside the box. So I would really, really recommend for anyone to like just to start delving into these communities, to feel like there are other options, there are other ways, and to see whether this is something that calls to you, whether this is something that aligns with you. Because maybe you discover that it is, and maybe you start to align with those people that will also help you step into that light and, work through those fears that are kind of holding you back to picture a different way of living for yourself and to start to really tune into that authentic self. Because again, I think unfortunately a lot of us, when we live in those fears of how we should be, we're never really fully expressing ourselves. And that's a real burden. Like, that's really difficult. I had lived in that for years, and it was so hard to carry all these masks I had to wear. It was so hard to not be just this shining light. And it's kind of like once you strip away all that and you step into that vibration of courage to be who you are and to just speak your truth and to know that no matter what, you have that love inside you. You don't actually need anyone else's love or judgment or support. Like you have everything you need inside you. That's what gets you to a place where you can step into yourself and come back home to yourself, as I like to call it. So yeah, don't be scared to reach out to people who can be that, who can hold your hand through this kind of challenging experience. It's definitely what I did. Like, I think it really helped me to be in those communities to feel like, okay, I'm not alone in this.
And I'm just thinking everything you're saying, I'm like, yeah, I resonate with that as well. And I think when I was just starting to delve into expanding my repertoire and using more of these untraditional, I'll say, types of methods, I was very guarded at first with who I would share it with because of, like you said, I was like, oh, they're going to judge me or they're going to think I'm like, I've lost it or something is wrong with me. And because I've traditionally had a very research-based scientific way of approaching things and working within a system. So I would like sprinkle in little tidbits of like, I took this class on meditation, and, just see what people say. And what I found is that when I had the courage to utter that I was trying these sorts of things, it's like the people that I communicated this with, I learned that they too were delving or interested or curious. And it like gave each other, us both permission to like talk openly and freely about it. And that was really, really awesome to see that, other people, a lot of other people resonate with this type of work and are interested in learning about it and see the value in it. And they just might not be in a place where they're ready to talk about it openly yet.
Yeah, for sure. Like I really, really resonate with that. And it's like I read a quote somewhere not long ago. It was like, be the light that shines the path for others. So like have the courage to step into your authentic self and then create that path for other people. Because the more you come back to yourself and the more you step into your own of authenticity, the more you give other people the opportunity to do the same and for other people to give them that courage to be like, yeah, maybe it's not so scary to just be myself, to speak my truth, because they see more and more other people doing the same. So again, it's that sense of community and that sense of I'm not the only one in this who feels this way.
Mhm. It's so beautiful. Would you mind sharing a little bit of just clients that you've worked with and some of the transformation or some of the positive changes that you've seen within people that you've worked with?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll start with the spiritual side in terms of the Akashic records readings. Like, what I find with that a lot of the time, it's so beautiful to watch because what comes through is very much what that person already knows deep down. And it's like you're this mirror that reflects it back to them and almost like says something out loud that they were too scared to think out loud for themselves. And it's also kind of like giving them the permission to step into that energy that they know they like need to step into as well. So I've had a lot of people come to me and there's this energy of constant rushing to get somewhere, this energy to like perform, to have a better business, a bigger business, to really like expand and do it quickly. And how do I do it? And when we come at it from that energy, internally, our body knows that really what we need is a lot more rest to process like what's going on and to actually show up in a way that is coming from a place of nourishment and rest rather than from a place of constant achieving. And again, it's almost like what I see a lot is that people just sometimes need that permission to be told, hey, it's okay. You can take a step back. It's really okay to just go and focus on yourself for a little bit. So it's just like having someone else tell them what they already know internally is so powerful. And again, I find this so empowering because, I'm not even positioning myself in a place of, oh, I know this, I know that. I'm positioning myself in a place of, you actually know exactly what you need. I'm just guiding you to get there yourself.
Yep.
And that's so empowering because that's what I want people to walk away with feeling with that energy of I can do things myself. It's okay to get guidance sometimes, but actually everything I need is within me. So that's been the biggest thing I've seen, definitely. And, people have come back and said, wow, like, thank you. That's so inspiring. And, you can feel that energy change. And in terms of coaching, again, I found a lot of people are very in their mind, as most people are, to be honest. Again, it's just the way we're brought up, especially in this society. And at first, it can be quite overwhelming and difficult to start to delve into that somatic work because when you haven't done it like ever your whole life, and suddenly you're starting to uncover that your body actually gets a say. It's very overwhelming because you get a lot more sensations coming through. You might have pains coming through, tensions that you didn't know were there. So it's an experience that can be a little bit scary for people at first, which is why, again, it's so important to have that space where you can hold that person. And so what I've really found is this beautiful connection with this other person who I can hold this space for them to explore that connection with themselves. So again, like, I'm not here to be like, okay, this is exactly what you need to do. It's this and this. I'm just holding space for people to then tune into themselves and to start to really discover, okay, who am I? how do I connect with my body? How do I connect with all my inner children, all my shadow aspects? How do I connect with my heart space, with my soul, with what I really truly want? And that's what I've seen gradually with people. They really start to explore it. And, with some, it can take a little longer because, again, there's this element of numbness that comes through. And that's like a defense mechanism that is like, okay, nope, we're not dealing with this right now. So, again, sometimes it's just having a little more space for someone to really start to understand that, okay, it is safe to start to process these things. And it's very much managing someone's capacity as well. So I'm very careful to make sure that people are in a place where they're not going over their limit, they're in that place where they can handle things and they do it bit by bit. And it seems like these things are small, but they're really like big on the grand scale of coming back to yourself. They're really big because those little things of even if you just start to be more present in yourself, even a few times in a day, that's a huge win. That
Hmm.
is a thing because you're now living in the present moment. You're now not living in your anxiety or fear of, oh my God, what's going to happen tomorrow or next year, or oh my God, this happened to me yesterday or however many years ago. You're living in the now. And that's what we have here in this life is this moment, this now, this connection to self. So that has been so beautiful to see and for people to connect to.
I love how you worded all of that. Yes. And just knowing that you are working as a guide to hold space for people to come home to self, to rediscover who they are and get in tune with what their true desires are, what their soul path is. It's a beautiful and powerful thing. And it sounds simple. And like, okay, that's just a small, and I agree with you. It's the ripple effects of what that can do are so profound. It is hard to even describe. I mean, I look at like someone like you as an example, from, years ago when you were, your body was impacted, your career was feeling misaligned, you were burnt out, and the shifts that you've had now and the work that you're doing now, I just like I see like a sense of lightness and
Mm.
peace and just trust in self and inner knowledge and like to be able to give that gift to somebody else and help guide them to get to that. I mean, think about quality of life, like the difference between quality of life of then and now. Like to give that to somebody else is incredible and it's beautiful that you're able to do that with all of your gifts.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I think the other thing I want to say in terms of the big change of starting to live this way of more presence is like everything becomes a gift. Like you're no longer trying to reach a certain goal. Like you're still working towards things, but that's no longer the important part. For me now, I'm just loving making the connections with people. I'm loving having these interactions with other practitioners and with my clients, and it's teaching me all so much and it's giving me so much purpose
Yeah.
and nourishment for my soul. And that's the true gift here. It's just to enjoy the process and to really take a step into this energy of more ease and joy, that energy that unfortunately just gets stifled by the systems, by us like growing up and needing to just work and perform and do all these things. So I've been doing a lot to like reconnect with that inner child. It's like, for example, I used to take art in school. And that was always graded. It was like, okay, you have to perform in a certain way. So this aspect of something that was meant to be so just creative and expressive, again, ultimately became something that needed to be a certain way to be graded, and you needed to be better and perform and all these things. And now I've come to a place like where I've realized, oh, well, maybe I haven't touched up for so long because it was just another thing that felt like something I needed to be good at or I needed to perform at. And now I've really just started to reconnect for it just for the fun of it. Just for half an hour, I would just be like, I'm just going to put some paper there and whatever comes through, I'm going to have no expectations of what it looks like. I don't care. I don't need to show anyone. This is purely for me and my inner child to just connect to the energy of joy and creativity and expressiveness. And I feel like this is really what we don't do enough of. Like, a lot of us have forgotten what it's like to just have joy, just experience those feelings of ease and play. Like, not many of us get to do that anymore.
So true. I'm really happy that you brought that up too. And I think connecting with our inner child is a really helpful way to get back to that sense of joy. And doing art, that's a beautiful thing. And it resonates with me just like, yeah, you get graded on it. If you didn't follow the protocols, then you're not a good artist. And so like that happened to me, and I haven't touched art in years because of that. And to be able to just go back to it and like open up a blank journal or grab a canvas and just put things out there and just have fun with it. Like that's the thing. We need to have fun in life. Life, like if we're not having fun, then we're doing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's like we're here to enjoy this human experience, this wonderful things that we have in the world. And to be honest, like we don't even need a lot. It's just about like connection to self and to others. So it's like for me, what's really helped is just taking that step back. And again, even though I'm working on my practice and I'm growing, I'm expanding, I don't have this sense of like, oh my God, I need to be earning this amount, or I need to be there, or I need to be a certain way. I've just taken a step back and now I'm just enjoying the journey.
Yeah.
And I'm just tuning into that, like loving the connections and the joy that brings me. And I'm loving waking up and being able to say, how do I choose to show up today? This is how I'm going to choose to show up today. Like whether that's more ease, more nurture, more fun. And then I just follow that energy and I give myself the space to just experience whatever I feel I need to experience. And I'm not so critical or harsh on myself when, I don't get the 100 things that are on my to-do list
Yeah.
done in one day. I'm like, it's okay. Actually, the expectations I used to set for myself were not human anyway. So it's like, now if I get even just one thing or two things done, I'm like, wow, that's
Right.
amazing. Well done. And I've enjoyed doing it. That's great. So I really recommend for anyone who's even just, trying to shift into a new career, thinking about a new way of living, new direction, just when you do start that journey, start it with the energy of where you want to end up. So it's kind of like, why are you doing it? Are
Mhm.
you doing it to have more freedom, to have more abundance, to have more connection and joy and fun with family? Well, then already be in that energy because the groundwork that you set is going to be the direction you take. So if you start off something and you're like, oh, I'm going to need to put in so many more hours, I'm going to need to really work, I'm going to need to do this and that, that's the trajectory you'll take and that's the trajectory you'll end up on.
Mhm.
So I really just suggest that you already start to see that you have all these things in your life. You have the freedom, the abundance, the connections. It's just about tuning into the little things that you have and being grateful and paying that gratitude and just that's the energy you want to be at. And then that way your life will evolve the way you actually want to envision it.
That's
So.
excellent, excellent advice. Yes, to imagine yourself already living, already doing the thing, already having it, and live in that energy and frequency. And then that is the trajectory that you are going to create for yourself. And so,
Mhm.
and yeah, I agree. Like, don't keep thinking about, oh, I have to achieve these goals at X, Y, Z. No, just have fun, have flow, have ease in the process, and then things really start happening. And you're
Mhm.
happy and at peace and calm and just joyful along the way, which is where we all want to be, you know?
For sure. Just having fun is where we all want to be. And like the more we start to connect with that aspect of ourselves and just bringing that inner child to front and
Mhm.
letting them out a little bit more, then everything just becomes so much easier. And, all these aspects, they still turn up. We have a human experience. The ego will still remain. So they're still going to show up and, have these thoughts, but it's okay. We can welcome them in and we can say, I see you.
Yeah.
I understand why you're there. I understand you're just trying to keep me safe because of past experiences. But actually, maybe right now we can all work together to be different. We
Mhm.
can all work together to live a different way. And so it's kind of like we're not pushing these aspects away. Like they're still going to show up, but we actually welcome them in as part of the family, as like that's the way we connect with all parts of us, right? It's like no longer pushing them away. We're no longer pushing these shadow parts. And we're no longer pushing away the somatic parts of whatever's coming through. We're just welcoming it to be there and to experience. And for me, I feel like that is presence. Like that is why we're here. It's to experience life in the present moment. And for me, that's kind of how it's done. So.
Yes. I love that. So, Daria, as we are cutting to the end of our time, I want to make sure you had an opportunity to share anything else that I might not have thought to ask you to talk about. Is there any other final thoughts that you were hoping to speak about?
I mean, I think We've covered a lot of ground, so
We
it's
sure
been
have.
great. But I think what I would just love to really leave people with is don't be scared to look for other opportunities. Like, really step outside that box, like, and see whether, you can find a community of support in places where you might have thought it wasn't there. And whether that's making new connections or talking to old ones, but just make sure that you know there's always a different way. There's always another option. Don't feel stuck on one trajectory, on one path, because you really can change things for how you want it to be if you just give yourself the space to actually consider other options and to consider that what do I really want and to connect with those inner parts of you. You can make anything happen, really.
I love that. It's so true. It is never, ever, ever too late to redefine the path that you're on, to change your course of action, to pivot, to find your inner child, and to really live a life that you love and have fun doing it. Daria, I have enjoyed this conversation with you so much, and I could talk to you for hours, but
Thank
unfortunately we
you.
don't. But thank you so much for being on this show. It has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, and you, thank you so, so
Wonderful.